At a council meeting last night, Centennial Projects was voted as the successful tender for the planned commercial development. An independent 12-man committee consisting of the Shire President and Clerk, 4 heads of department, an accountant, 4 councillors and an independent consultant in financial management and local government will now be set up to supervise procedures. However, the motion to pass the only tender was voted in favour 7-2 and met with opposition from councillors Crichton and Collins.
I took the opportunity of speaking to 5 of the people who picked up documents, and they each said that the tender document was too restrictive, that gave them no opportunity to present their own submission. And I think basically it came out with what was said in writing by the Scott offer, that he was still interested in submitting a price of $2.25 million, but not under the conditions as laid down. They just didn't allow any input from any developer. We just had to accept what council said.
Earlier this week, residents of Port Stephens called for the dismissal of their council. But according to the Shire President, there's been no reaction. President Taylor says he now feels confident with the advice in future regarding the project.
More so now than ever before. I personally, with Councillor Holly, were in the barrister's office today, and it was at his suggestion that we incorporate going to the Minister and advising him, which we've been doing up to this present stage in any case, but bringing that particular department completely up to date with the actions that we're taking in accepting this tender. And that we should imagine that any input that's been put into this from people within the Nelson Bay area that have objected to the actions that we're taking will all be considered by them in the light of the information that they've been provided by Council and themselves.
Centennial Projects is now the official tender for the $6 million Salamander commercial development. However, its position is not yet fully secure. All documentation regarding that development will now be sent to the Minister for Local Government, Kevin Stewart, and it will be his ultimate decision which will give the project its final go-ahead.
Since 1976, the Upper Hunter Wine Festival has been a very popular October long weekend drawcard, bringing thousands of people to the Muswellbrook area to enjoy not only the fruits of the vines, but also the area's other attractions. Following a questionnaire circulated in a local paper, however, its future is now in doubt. Only a handful of people replied, and there doesn't seem to be too many willing to put in the effort to ensure its continuing success. There also appears to be a shortage of fresh and innovative ideas to back up the attraction of the vineyards. Festival Committee Chairman John Gowing says that the prospect of only a half-baked festival, run by only a handful of people and with no new exciting centrepiece, isn't very appealing. And so, rather than that, if tomorrow night's meeting doesn't draw a suitable response, he'd rather see it postponed than perhaps revived during the bicentenary.
In the past, we've had great support from many sponsors and the media at large, and the community, service clubs and charities have all participated in the festival, and we're hoping that that energy will be preserved. If not used in the 86 year, then it'll all come together again in 1988 for what will be an enormous festival, we hope.
First of all, you can have a VHF radio on board. They cost around $400 upwards.
Good afternoon, Sydney Radio. I wonder, could we have an update on the latest weather? Thank you. Over.
Sydney Radio. Yes, certainly.
By getting this sort of information, you'll be in a safer position on your 3-kilometre or more venture out to sea.
Runaway back. Thank you, Sydney Radio. Returning to Channel 16.
Thank you, Runaway. Cheers for now. I'll see you later.
And this is the other piece of equipment that will be compulsory after this weekend. It's what's called an EPIRB. It costs between $150 and $200, and if you get into difficulty at sea, this is how the EPIRB works. EPIRB stands for Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, what it is. And it is a lightweight radio transmitter which produces a distinctive distress signal. When you're in difficulty, flick a switch on the EPIRB and keep it close by you. The government says, as well as helping save lives, the carrying of VHF radios or EPIRBs will shorten search and rescue operations. All boats, big and small, will be required to have one or the other fitted. In fact, it's law now, but the government has given an unspecified period of grace for boat owners to respond. But if this experienced sailor is representative of general opinion, the new laws are questionable. Ashley Buell has a foreign-going master's certificate and has spent the past 20 years either at sea or involved in boating in some way.
I don't think that the compulsory carrying of EPIRBs and VHF radio is going to really stop the uneducated people going to sea getting into strife. And when I mean uneducated, I mean people who don't really know the problems with going to sea and the dangers of it when things get bad.
And how are the new laws going to be enforced? I asked Sergeant Bill Hull of the Newcastle Water Police.
Well, John, it's going to be very difficult. The only thing we can do is that when a boat is in need of assistance, we'll go out and we'll get him. Now, if he is more than 2 nautical miles off the coast, not kilometres, 2 nautical miles off the coast, we'll bring him in. We will check his vessel to see if he has the required equipment that is supposed to be enforced from the 1st of this month. If he doesn't have this equipment on board, that's either the VHF radio or the EPIRB. If he doesn't have either of these pieces of equipment, we take his particulars and we report him by way of a breach to the Maritime Services Board.
Well, Sergeant, I suppose you're concerned also that there may be a situation of misuse of this equipment if everybody's got it.
Certainly. With this type of equipment, if it's used responsibly, it's the best thing in the world. But in the hands of people who don't know how to use it, it can be a real pain. I don't want people going out with an EPIRB and running out of fuel and setting off a gigantic chain of events, search and rescue operations, simply because they've run out of $2 worth of fuel. We want them to make sure that they only use this in a life-saving capacity.
The announcement of the new exchange program was made at Newcastle High School yesterday, in front of a gathering who would benefit most from the project. Company Secretary of Howard Smith Limited, Penton Sutcliffe, said the program will be known as the K Nakayasu Student Exchange, named after President and Chairman of Ube Industries until his death in January last year. Newcastle's export industry of steam and coal to Japan in 1974. For the small Monday, travel set off on a month-long trip in Japan. Organised by the high school at an angle of between 60 to 70 degrees. She says the announcement of the program has enabled those students to go who before may not have been able to make such a trip.
It means a great deal actually, because there are at least one student on this trip who wouldn't have been able to go at all. And I think it's very important that students who are interested in Japan and who've worked hard at school and who would get a great deal out of going there, they should have the opportunity of going and not be prevented for financial reasons.
Yeah, we've had about 4 or 5 meetings, Lee, and I've finished in good places in all of them, so we're pretty happy so far.
It's a big one tomorrow night, the Coke Classic though, isn't it? That's one you'd really like to tuck under your belt.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest races on the program here at the Motordrome, and it's one I think we won last year, and I'd surely like to win it again.
And I know with the Americans coming towards the end of the month that you want to be in the team.
Yeah, that's right. The Americans are coming over again, as they always do, and getting in that team's a real prestige thing, and being a starter, I'd really like to do that again, that's for sure.
Am I correct to say that the Americans appeared to have more power than you fellas a couple of years ago, but that's all changed? Is that right or wrong?
No, probably not more power, Lee, but more in suspension and tyre work. New suspension designs and softer tyre patterns. They obviously get them before we do, and eventually we catch up, but I think more now with the aerodynamic shapes and that type of thing, we're right up behind them now.
These cars, the Grand National cars, what are we talking about in power?
Looking about 500, 600 horsepower and just about all the Grand Nationals.
They all look the same, bar the painting on them now.
Well,
is this the end product? This is as far as you can go?
I think so, yeah. Most of them are similar on the outside, a lot of different chassis designs, suspension designs, just a matter of different colours, and that's about all now.
So it gets down really now to driver ability rather than someone with a better car?
That's right, yeah, a lot of driver ability, and being able to pick the right combinations on the night is probably a big thing too.
It was as much an exercise about the dangers on the road as an exercise showing the operations and efficiency of the rescue and emergency services. An accident scene was simulated beside the town's Lions Park. It involved 2 cars, a push-bike rider and all up 6 people. Ambulance, police, the fire brigade and ambulance and police rescue attended to find that 3 people were in serious conditions. As the individual rescue and emergency services went through their procedures, an ambulance officer explained what was going on to the crowd that had turned up to watch. It was explained that the accident was caused by the driver of the bone-coloured Telstar, who was intoxicated. He had run into the rear of the green car with the push-bike rider in the middle of the whole thing. The accident was designed so that individual emergency services could use all the equipment available to show how they would handle a real situation. Today's exercise was planned to coincide with the arrival of the busy Christmas holiday period on the roads and to reinforce several warnings. According to the organisers, the messages today were simple. Don't drink and drive, wear seatbelts, and for cyclists, wear the proper safety gear.
The Sale Yards days have been numbered for some time. Their position, directly opposite the hospital, had been cause for concern, and when the Department of Main Roads began eyeing off the land for a bypass road, the council was only too happy to sell. That transaction took place in June, and since then, the auctioneers have leased the yards, carrying out only minimal maintenance. The sale yards echo the time when stock were driven in on foot, sold, and then walked back out again. Times have caught up and long past, even though live weight selling was introduced some years ago. On Wednesday, the scales will be relocated to the new yards, which are only half the area, but designed for trucking animals straight through, in one end and out the other. And it seems the lookers-on are more nostalgic than those directly affected, like Alex Thomas, a long-time operator at Maitland.
Excellent. I really do. I think it's grand that at long last we've got some sort of yards that are going to be able to work in efficiently and effectively and give a far better service to the grazier, to the grower, and to also the buyer there, that is, and ultimately the general public will feel the benefit of it because there'll be very little damage to the stock coming from those yards.
Site works have just started at Kulgura, north of Coonabarabran in the state's northwest, for the ambitious Telescope project. The $30 million program will see 6 22-metre dishes built on special rail tracks. The space antenna will map large areas of the southern sky by synthesising an electronic picture. But the movement of these dishes is critical, and this is where Dr. Evans has stepped in. His team at Newcastle University is building a sophisticated computer control system which will compensate for wind buffeting the huge dishes. It will also feed vital information to a central computer used to build the pictures of outer space. Dr Evans says the project will use much of his department's research and expert knowledge.
The department's got an international reputation for its work in the theory of the sort of feedback loops that control the pointing of the dish, and it's also got a very good national reputation for its work in the development of special purpose microcomputer systems.
A lot of it's being built here in Newcastle?
The first 2 control computers are being built in Newcastle, and they will be tried on an antenna sometime in July or August next year, and after that there'll be contracts let to build the remainder of the 6 or 7 computers needed.
For most students, tomorrow marks the last day of school before the Christmas holidays. I'm Melinda Smith, and today we caught up with 2 Newcastle high schools who replaced lessons with early Christmas celebrations and special presentations.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
This is where the Dozens Party has always been held. Called Dozens because it all started with 12 men deciding to have an open Christmas party on the 12th day of the 12th month each year. In the past it was well underway by midday, but this is why it wasn't today. It's been moved to Cam's Wharf after the Lake City Council refused a request by organiser Rod Moore to make it fully legal.
Well, we've tried to make it fully legal this year. We applied for liquor licences, council approval. I offered my services to clean up the area, security guards, a bus running to take people home, stop drink driving, and they just said no.
OK, so you're expecting 1,000 people, but perhaps it's going to be divided. Would you expect quite a few people out of tradition to keep coming here to Swansea Heads?
They will for a while, but come night time, when there's no lights here, they'll go at Cam's Wharf.
Does it disappoint you to have to break that tradition and take it to Ponderosa on Cam's Wharf Road?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not Dozens Day, as the locals say. It's nothing like what it should be.
According to author Ed Tonks, Beneath Tidal Waters deals with the stage in Newcastle's coal mining history known as Delta mining. During the late 1890s and early 1900s, 3 large collieries were in operation beneath or within sight of Newcastle Harbour. In mining coal at Carrington's Wickham and Bullock Island Colliery, Hetton at Carrington and Stockton Colliery, some key developments took place.
Were possibly the actual sinking through this mud and sand and alluvium that had to be supported by these collars, and then once this solid rock and the coal was obtained, mining coal effectively from what was a fairly difficult mining environment, because the borehole seam beneath the harbour actually split as far as the Stockton mine was concerned into two sections, and this added to the cost of mining and also the challenge to the mining engineers.
Mr Tonks says few reminders exist of the harbour mines, belying the significance of the work that was done.
Even though it only occupies a small chronological band, the events were of great significance. The challenge was a very, very real one to the mining engineers, and also the sinking of these mines within sight of the harbour captured a great deal of people's imagination at the time. A time of great drama, a time of income being earned, and now just about most of it is gone, with just a few occasional indirect reminders.
Hello, I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, I'll bring you a report from Newcastle's RSPCA. The society has been inundated with animals in recent weeks whose owners have abandoned them to go on holidays. Offenders face a maximum fine of $1,000.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
I'm Helen Hughes. In tonight's news, I'll bring you details of the Newcastle City Administration's budget for 1986. It sets out a rate increase for next year of 6%, 2% lower than the maximum allowable.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.